RaPTr system. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So we're going to try and keep this webinar duration today to 30 minutes. We'll have about a 20-minute presentation, and then we'll see how many questions we have at the end for Q&A, and maybe we'll wrap up early if we don't have a lot of questions. We recommend for your best experience to close out any other apps and browsers. And if you do happen to experience any technical difficulties, you can go ahead and message us using that right side panel on your screen. At the bottom, it says type a message. Let me actually go ahead and enable our Q&A mode also, and we will have that Q&A at the end of our session. And you can type a message at any time during the presentation in the Q&A, and we will address it at the Q&A session. After the webinar, we will send a link to the recording to all registrants. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So many of you are in the logistics industry. You run sophisticated warehouses. You use advanced algorithms for inventory and truck routing, for dock scheduling. You have advanced automated solutions for storage and retrieval. You have a lot of technologies that you have to be at the forefront of in order for your modern logistics to work. But at the dock door, sometimes it's all relying on a person with a hand scanner to have to remember to jump off the forklift, grab your hand scanner, go over to your pallet and capture that barcode label. And then the only record that you have of that is the hand scan. And you have to get thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pallets out the door every day onto the right trucks and get them to the right destination. And sometimes you have missed scans or you have pallets that are going to the wrong place. And then sometimes, even if you do get it right, someone on the other end can claim that you had it wrong, that maybe your shipment didn't show up, or that it was the wrong order, or that it was damaged. And then you'll get charged for it with non-compliance. So that's what this webinar today is about. Our RaPTr system generations 1 and 2 have already worked really well for our customers. But here at Artemis Vision, we're always looking to evolve and optimize based on customer feedback and needs, and to provide more value to our customers. Your forklift drivers are always going to want to go faster. You want to have a system where you set up the fewest amount of hardware as necessary. So today we're proud to release Gen 3 of our RaPTr system, which is a substantial improvement over a system that was already saving hundreds of thousands of dollars for our customers and has significantly improved efficiency for all of our customers. And with that, to talk a little bit more about the technicalities of how the system works and what is new today with Gen 3, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Brennan, who is the president of Artemis Vision, and he's going to give some more details on that.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. Just give me a second here, and I will share the PowerPoint from my screen as well. Okay, so as Andrea discussed, we developed our Gen 3 system to improve upon what Gen 2 had already done. So what these systems, these rapid pallet trackers, are designed around is to make barcode scanning a natural part of the truck loading process, or just the movement of goods in general. Typically with a handheld scanner, the barcode scanning is an add-on, right? You're trying to drive the goods from point A to point B, and you have to either crane over the front of your forklift or get off the forklift, go find the handheld scanner, scan the pallet, and hop back on the forklift. What RaPTr's designed around is trying to make this touchless and efficient. You don't stop. And in addition to that, you're going to automatically store all the data so that the data capture and the business transaction is in the scan of the barcode and the documentation of the shipment is just seamless. Nobody on the floor who you want to have just loading the trucks or doing what you want people to do has to think about it. So why do this? Why scan barcodes with a rapid pallet tracking system? The biggest is speed. Even with our Gen 2 system, customers are saving over 25 minutes in loading time per truck. When you think about it, if you don't have this type of system with a handheld scanner, you're having to drive up to the right dock door, jump off the truck, go find the handheld scanner for that dock door, bring it over, scan the pallet, take a picture, and then get back on the truck or your fork truck and drive on to the trailer. You add that up, 26 pallets per truck, and before you know it, you've spent a lot of extra time loading that truck. And that's even if you don't make a mistake. If you make a mistake, well, now you've got to potentially unload pallets, figure out which pallet you forgot to scan or which pallet's missing, and troubleshoot that. And sometimes when there's a mistake like that made, well, the truck just heads off and leaves, and you ship an incomplete truck to your customer. So that gets to the second benefit of this, accuracy, right? You can't forget to scan. You just drive onto the truck, you get the data, you get the images, and you avoid these OTIF fees. So OTIF stands for on time in full. And what that means is you get penalized once you get below 95% or below 90% on time in full, 1% or 2% of the value of the load. So even if you're just shipping cans, cheap cans of beans that are going to go in a grocery store, at $1 per can or $2 a can, and 1,000 cans on a pallet and 26 pallets in a truck, you're talking $1,000 to $2,000 per pallet and 26 of them on a truck. It's a $50,000 load. A 2% penalty is $1,000. If you start having to pay these penalties and you're shipping multiple trucks per day, you're going to pay for a system very, very quickly. The other benefit is you can run leaner. So if you have more accurate records of what's really in the warehouse, you don't have to have as much excess inventory, and you don't spend time looking for things that aren't there. And because you don't have this excess inventory, your footprint isn't as large. You don't have all that square footage. And the more square footage you have and the more inventory you have, you're actually not better off, because it takes your drivers longer to go from one end of the warehouse, pick up the pallet they need, to the other. And that means it takes longer to load each truck, which costs money. And that's going to basically lead to a situation where you might have tons of inventory and tons of drivers, but you're spending a lot of money to deliver each load to your end customer. The other benefit is cost efficiency. There's no separate RFID system or trying to get the RFID embedded in the label while making sure you don't break the RFID. RFID costs can also add up. You're talking 20 cents a pallet. Typically you're shipping thousands of pallets a day. So that cost adds up fast, and it's an ongoing cost. You can never buy all the RFIDs in 1 year, capitalize the cost. It's OpEx, and OpEx hurts when you're trying to run an efficient logistics operation. So the system looks a lot like our Gen 2 system. People who have the Gen 2 system may notice some slight differences. We have now mounting options on the plate itself, so you can just mount that plate to the wall. You don't need the 8020 or the Unistrut if you don't want it, that you see in the background there. Also, most systems are now single camera, no need for a second camera. And we've shrunk that mounting plate a little bit by reconfiguring where the computer is, slightly smaller power supply because we don't have a light. So the system's a little smaller. You can fit it between dock doors that are a little closer. And it just saves a little bit on mounting time, particularly if you just pre-drill the holes for that plate. It can go right on the wall. So we'll go through some of the other improvements here. One of them is called out of the USB 3.0 16 megapixel camera. But we're going to go through some of the other improvements under the hood that you don't see here in this picture. So higher resolution. You can see here our Gen 1 was 1.2K by 1.6, Gen 2, 2 by 2.4, and Gen 3 is a little over 3 times the resolution of Gen 2. That means we can read smaller barcodes in a larger field of view. We also have more photosensitivity on the Gen 3 unit. And what this means is you can do shorter exposures, and that means the forklift drivers can drive faster because there won't be as much blur due to motion in the images. So you see here the photosensitivity of the Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3 units. That's continued to increase as camera technology has improved. We have more depth to the pixels as well. So you're able to image now in conditions with more variable lighting and potentially not as bright illumination. And what that means is that basically for the Gen 3 system, we haven't run into a warehouse yet where lighting has been required. Gen 2 required lighting in some cases. If your warehouse was well lit, you didn't need any lighting, but some warehouses, they're not that well lit and you did need a light. Gen 3, unless you run your forklifts in the pitch black dark, you don't need lighting. And that has an advantage in terms of space required on the wall, install complexity. There's no process of aiming a light or tuning in a light or anything like that. You see that the pixel depth has just been improving almost as if it's Moore's law for consumer electronics that was going on in the 90s and the 2000s. Cameras are going through that right now, and the pixel depth that you can get today is just head and shoulders above what you could get 5 years ago. This also means most units are now going to be a single camera. There's no need for lighting, just one camera, it works. 2D codes, so a 2D code is a data matrix like this. You have data in both dimensions. The dots in the pattern define the barcode. For those 2D codes, we can now accommodate down to 2 millimeter modules on up to a 2 meter high pallet, so a double stack pallet. You just drive it through. A 2 millimeter module is fairly small. You should be able to fit a 2D code with a 2 millimeter module on most any label. Alternatively, 1D, we now support 1D as long as you're GS1 compliant. GS1 is a global standard for labeling products and labeling pallets. So if you're not GS1 compliant at the moment, it's to your benefit to become GS1 compliant. You're going to be able to much more seamlessly interact with other trading partners if you comply with the GS1 standard. So now for both those cases, either this 1D or the 2D, you can just install a Gen 3 system with a single camera, and this is going to work for you. Now, obviously, there's some places that they're just not 2D, not GS1. It just works the way it works at some warehouses. And for this, yes, you might need 2 cameras, but you can always repurpose the cameras if you go to 2D or GS1 later. So if you outfit, the first few warehouses and then management decides that, it would be worth it to go to the GS1 standard, you can just repurpose the cameras to other doors. Or, if you can't go to the GS1 standard and you can't do 2D, it'll work with 2 cameras. There's no need to not, to go slower and not be as accurate just because you might need a second camera. And the biggest benefit, and this has been true of the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 system, and we've added a lot of features to support doing it better with Gen 3, is the photo documentation. So we're adding with the Gen 3 system, you can now use a supplemental camera to get a different angle of the palette. You can acquire images before the barcode scan and after the barcode scan. And particularly in environments where the driver is going to be taking a slight turn before getting on the truck, you get images of multiple sides of the pallet. You can have 3 or 4 images showing the condition of the pallet, so that if somebody brings up a claim, you have full documentation that you did what you're supposed to do. That pallet was not crushed, there was shrink wrap on it, it wasn't soaking wet, or anything else that might have occurred in shipment to your customer. And this can help pretty quickly. Again, I mean, even if it's just cheap cans of beans, you have 1,000 of them on a pallet, and you're talking about a $1,500, $2,000 pallet there. If you have just a few claims a month that a pallet was crushed, that's going to pay for the system in 1 to 2 months. God forbid somebody claims a whole truck is damaged, but that happens. Or you have these claims that they tend to be certain customers that might complain all the time, and once you show some photo evidence that it's just not so, the complaints go away. To summarize what the enhancements are, so Gen 2, 5 megapixel, Gen 3, 16. We're getting rid of all the stop to scan for 1D due to the shorter exposures, due to better photosensitivity. You can now scan in motion for 1D, larger palettes, smaller codes, and a lot more options to capture these additional images so you can better document what you ship out. Pricing, it's $8,900 for a single camera Gen 3 unit, and that's list price quantity 1. So it matches the Gen 2 2-camera unit that it vastly outperforms. And we're offering some trade-in options. So the camera will plug into your Gen 2 computer. You can just upgrade the camera if you want. That's $2,400. Or you can trade in your Gen 2 system and then purchase a Gen 3 for $6,500. Giving you a bunch of options if you're already on the Gen 2 system, you like it, but you want something that lets you drive through at full speed and still scan that 1D code, you can make the upgrade. So with that, I'll hand it over for questions from the audience and anything anybody wants to ask. So we have a question here. Any updates to backend integration into existing warehouse management software in terms of validating pallets that should be moving and logging captured pallets throughout the day? So we've added, as part of the Gen 2C release, we added support for Oracle, SQL Server, and MySQL MariaDB. So we added direct database integration via store procedure. Gen 2B added the .NET DLL callbacks. And then the original units supported the CSV and XML file integration. So we now have a lot of different ways to set these systems up. If there's special requirements, or if you don't have a relational database or the ability to load a CSV file to the unit, we do have other options. We're always open to adding custom options, but we've added a lot. We have a question here. Does the camera have the ability to capture volumetric data, such as a pallet cube? Currently it doesn't. So we don't have a 3D camera on there that'll get you the volume of the pallet. That would be something we could add in the future, or add as an option. We could use with the third-party camera triggering that we support for better photo documentation. You could hook up a 3D time-of-flight camera, and we could trigger it from our software. So when we get the barcode, we automatically trigger that camera. and save the 3D image. So that could be something that could be integrated via that feature. Our goal is to make this as easy to integrate with other technology as possible, but it's not an off-the-shelf native feature to the unit. I have another question here about downtime during installation. Generally, downtime during installation for the first one is going to be sort of 2 to 4 hours. From there, it's 1 to 2, if not under 1. If you pre-drill the mounting holes, you can sort of just slap these up. You basically just have the anchor bolts already in there, and put it up and thread the little hex nut on, and there you go. We have a question here. Does it work with an ERP system like SAP for shipping and receiving purposes? We currently have to scan to ship and receive. So what we actually recommend is to use, and we see this a lot of our big customers, to use a little bit of middleware for integrating with SAP. If you integrate all the edge devices with SAP, you can have a little bit of a nightmare in terms of you can never upgrade SAP without upgrading every edge device, and somehow doing that all at once or in some handshake, it gets tricky. So we recommend using just like a SQL Server database, and you export from SAP to that database. This system runs off that database all day long, and then gets sucked back into SAP on some schedule. And that way you have, if you need to upgrade warehouse by warehouse, or you need to go through an SAP upgrade, you have this layer of middleware where you can manage it, right? So in SQL Server, you can deal with the fact that we have to talk to this version of SAP and that version at the same time, or we have to talk to the scanners at warehouse location 1 and warehouse location 2, and there's a little bit of a difference there. So we recommend using a little bit of middleware to do that, and that's generally how we've seen this be most successful. Another question, can it scan more than 2 pallets in one stack? So there's no limit on the number of pallets. You see on the screenshot in that earlier screen where there's 2 OK messages. You can have it display as many as you need. So if it has a list that there need to be 5 pallets or whatever it might be, you would see 5 green bars and 5 OKs on that screen. At some point, it is going to get a little confusing for the forklift driver, but there's no limit to how many barcodes can be assigned to how many pallets that go on that truck. And the driver can get used to, if he's got a 3 stack, that he sees 3 OKs and 3 green bars. And if he sees 2 OKs and green bars and 1 big red bar that says wrong product, he can then respond to that and realize that he might have loaded the the bottom pallet or the top pallet as the wrong thing. So another question here: do we have a distributor in the UK? We do not at the moment. We sell this product directly. We found that that generally works best to have a direct relationship with the customer. If someone prefers to buy through a local distributor or has contracts with local distributors for this type of technology, we're happy to work through a local distributor. But we found it's best for this type of product if we can just sell to you direct and support you direct. We do offer the ability to try out a unit. If you purchase a unit, you can return it within 30 days after you try it out. So that really sort of de-risks the process. Mount it up, drive pallets through, see if you like it, and if you don't like it, just return it. And that generally works better than a distributor who's going to tell you whatever you might want to hear so that you buy. Other questions here. How do you filter out multiple barcodes that don't need to be read? Is there a way to have the camera read only 14-digit barcodes? Yeah, so we allow for regular expression filtering. That was a feature added in, I believe, Gen 2B, but I'm not 100% sure. So we let you filter based on length or any other feature. It's got to start with a 1, or it's got to start with an A, or end with a Z, or whatever it might be. So if you have, if you're someone on your IT team can put together a little regular expression, or we can put it together for you. You can filter based on a feature of the barcode. Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions, we'll wrap things up there. We're right on schedule. We're 3 minutes early. So thank you all for attending, and we'll be sending out a link to the recording of the webinar to all registrants if you did not get a chance to attend. And if you have any questions that come up afterwards, feel free to reach out. You can email me directly, tbrennan@artemisvision.com, or info@artemisvision.com. It goes to a handful of us who can answer whatever questions you have about the Gen 3 release. And with that, I'll let everybody get back to their day and have a good day. Thanks.